All right. First things first here. We want to go ahead and remind everybody that we do once a month, the first Monday of the month, we do a full entire global meeting that is recommended. I wouldn't say it's mandatory, but it is recommended that you come. If you don't, then you're going to miss out on all the new things we have coming, the bonuses, the new products we're launching. So we definitely want to make sure that you're here for that. We do record it, but of course, it's always better live. And the link is always the same, the one you have right now. All right, the second thing here is we have some bonuses. So for those of you that don't know, we did a brand new restart. So for those of you that have been in this program for 6 months, a year, we decided we're gonna do a 30-day bonus. And so we restarted all of the affiliates. We have about 800 of them. And so as of almost 30 days ago, we restarted you, but ending on this, the end of the 30 days, the whole week and some to qualify. So the first 30-day bonus, it's that you sell $5,000 worth of product. That's one Hydro Deluxe and maybe, a couple Hydro Shots. You get a $200 gift card to Healthy Hydration. Next up from that is a $10,000 that you help people get happily involved in the products. You receive the $500 gift card. And we've had our clients, our affiliates already meet this bonus 2 weeks into the program. That was $20,000 of revenue, which is an extra $1,000 bonus. So that's time. So when your new affiliates come in, they have 30 days to get this bonus. And you're going to want to help them because the next bonus is a 60-day bonus. So 60 days, you enroll 3 people and you help them each have $500 of product that they've sold, and you're going to get a $200 gift card. And then, of course, they get qualified to get the 30-day bonuses. On top of that, next week, we will be launching another bonus program as well to go on top of this. So definitely want to be present for that. All right, we did have our November filter sale. I understand it's the end of the month and we didn't have all the deluxe filters on there. Well, they're on the site now. So what we did is we extended the sale until Monday. So you have all weekend to go on the site, 30% off any of our filters. So definitely take advantage of that. You can use this flyer. It's in the group page. I'll share that with you in a minute. So this is our new Facebook group. We decided it was easier because we're all on Facebook to go ahead and jump into this group. Go ahead and take your phone out if you haven't already and scan this code. It will get you into the group. And we communicate in there a couple of times a day. You can ask questions in there. So we're always plugging in. That's kind of our spot to build a community and build our culture. All right, so now let's jump into it. We have amazing Dr. Lebaron, who was also in our event that we did here in Vegas about April 28th or so. And he is amazing. He is so smart that, you're going to listen to his content once and listen to it again. You're going to keep pulling more information because it's so deep and he just knows everything about the body, how it works at a cellular level, and how hydrogen interacts with it. And he's also very when it comes to professional athlete. He'll explain a little bit about what he does and how he does it. But he's going to tell a story here. I'm not going to get deep into it, but he's the founder of the Molecular Hydrogen Institute. And I want him to share a little bit of how he developed that and what the mission is. And then also letting you guys know that we do have the option in our program here, in the affiliate program, you're going to get his training through his certification, his course here, complimentary. It's $153 value. And as you're an affiliate, you get it for free. So I'm super excited about that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here and bring out the amazing Dr. Lebaron. Are you there?
I'm here. Well, thank you for the introduction. Well, I'm happy to have this opportunity really to share some of the research I've been involved in. So that is exciting. And of course, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And then we can go over them when I'm done. So that's no problem. But yeah, as Amanda said, I've been involved with this research of molecular hydrogen since 2009. Actually learned about it from the alkaline ionized water area, trying to figure out how that works. I know that's where Amanda originally came from, and Tracy, I know she also came from the area, and so maybe many of you also were familiar with that. And then what we learned was that hydrogen gas was a therapeutic agent responsible. And what I decided to do is I wanted to understand the mechanisms, the science behind how is hydrogen gas actually exerting these therapeutic effects. So I was able to go to Japan, and that was in 2013, and I researched the molecular mechanisms of hydrogen gas at Nagoya University in the Department of Neurogenetics, and we researched the cell signaling pathways. It was just a great opportunity, really. And then I came back, I started Molecular Hydrogen Institute, which at the time was just a website because I want to just educate people about molecular hydrogen, about what it is and what it is not, kind of debunk a lot of the myths out there about water and things in general. And then as things progressed, I ended up converting that into a 501c3 science-based nonprofit, which is what it is today. So, of course, as Matt has already mentioned, you can go to the website, molecularhydrogeninstitute.org, and you can see some of the research, the things we're involved in, learn education, and we even have, of course, those certification programs that we offer. And these certifications are actually also going to be offered through our university, as I'm an adjunct professor through the university. And so it's not like just, someone's opinion or something trying to like sell a course. Like there's a lot of that these days. These are accredited, basically, science-based courses. And Amanda has a kind of a neat program with that in general. So today, though, I want to share with you about the benefits of molecular hydrogen for exercise. So I'm actually so I teach at the university, as I said, chemistry, but mainly actually in the exercise and physiology department. I did my master's in exercise physiology, and I actually did one of my studies was actually on hydrogen gas. And so this is really an area that I'm very passionate about. I'm a wannabe competitive athlete myself. And so it's exciting to share some of that with you. So I did prepare a little bit of PowerPoint presentation that I'll go through. Let me see if I can share that with you here.
And I'm going to have to make you host too. Let's see.
Oh, yeah. No, I think I'm able to.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's already there. So let me just find it. I have a lot of stuff on my desktop. A busy day. Got to find the right one. Okay, here we go. Oh, all right, yeah. So I entitled this Molecular Hydrogen for Athletes. All right. So first, let's start with this graph here. We see on the y-axis, there's increasing health benefits. So as you exercise more, okay, go into the on the x-axis, there's increasing ROS and inflammation, but also that's like the more you exercise. So first, at the very bottom, where you're not really exercising at all, you're a couch potato. Well, you don't really have any benefits. So this is the inactive range, right? And then as you start to exercise more, you start getting into this optimal range. And you do start increasing your ROS, or your reactive oxygen species, your free radicals we'll talk about, as well as inflammation. There's an optimal range in there where you're getting the most health benefits. But eventually, it's possible that you can do an excessive level of activity where you're actually getting too much reactive oxygen species or oxidative stress and inflammation, and that's going to cause problems because you're actually resulting in decreased benefits. So let's talk about this a little bit more. So first, as we said, exercise significantly increases ROS, or your free radical production. Just in general, I mean, think about it. You're gonna go run, and what do you do when you start running? You start breathing more, right? You start breathing more oxygen, and oxygen is an oxidizer, right? That's what causes the apple to turn brown. So just by the sheer fact that you're breathing more and having more cellular metabolism, you are going to produce more of these free radicals. And this has led to, of course, the market of free radicals and antioxidants, right? It's like $1 billion industry. Everyone's talking about, oh, take all these antioxidants, or this, blueberry, or, I don't know, some other, supplement or something they found on the Amazon. People are talking about. So it's a huge industry. So we understand this. However, what people don't fully recognize is this part too. Conventional antioxidants may negate exercise benefits. And this is just one of the many studies out there. The title says antioxidants prevent health promoting effects of physical exercise in humans. So again, talking about taking like high dose synthetic antioxidants in general, but I mean, just think about this. You're trying to be a healthy individual. So you're going to start your exercise program, right? New Year resolution coming up, and you're going to start taking your antioxidants, And so you every morning take your antioxidants, you go out and you do your exercise, and then after what 8, 12 weeks of training, you're like, I just don't feel any better. I don't have better glucose sensitivity. I'm not any stronger. I can't run farther. All of these things. You're like, what's going on? Well, it's possible that you're taking too many of these conventional antioxidants. We normally get enough antioxidants just from our food and things in general for eating a well-balanced diet. And again, it's not that you shouldn't take antioxidants that are bad for you, but taking high doses of them, yeah, it can be problematic because it's way more than you ever get from food, for example. And so the question is, well, why is this? Well, this is some of the reasons that explain why. The first, exercise induced ROS, right? So exercise is creating a lot of free radicals, and these are important for training adaptations for vascularization, right? So you have more blood flow, blood vessels and things in your muscles. Mitochondrial biogenesis, right? Remember that mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, producing a lot of the ATP, which is the energy currency of the cell. So you get more mitochondria. And so as this figure shows here, this exercise, you can kind of look at this and you're seeing that you're getting a lot of beneficial effects from exercise, and a lot of this is mediated by free radicals. Okay, so if you look at this chart here, so conventional antioxidants versus the ROS, or the reactive oxygen species inflammation, and the response benefits. Okay, so what basically acute skeletal muscle signaling during exercise interferes with then there's an interference of antioxidants that hamper training adaptations. So if we see that you get your ROS and RNS or whatever, that's from your exercise, and then there's an arrow that's pointing towards stress activated proteins, as well as transcription factors, then gene transcription, and then you have these muscle adaptations. That's what you want, right? And then all that's coming from exercise. So ROS mediates those benefits from exercise. Exercise mediates those benefits from no, I said it right. Yeah. ROS or RNS, they mediate the benefits of exercise or skeletal muscle contractions. And then you see on the other circle here, antioxidants, showing like a blunting effect. Basically it's negating those ROS and RNS, reactive nitrogen species. And in so doing, then you're not getting those benefits to activating these protein transcription factors and subsequent gene transcription and the muscle adaptations. So part of this, we need to understand that life is balanced between enough oxidants and antioxidants. I talk about this a lot, but it's just important that we always keep this in mind, that you on the one side you have your oxidants, right, where oxygen characterizes that, but you have like nitric oxide in there, superoxide, NAD plus, for example, NADP plus. All of those are considered the oxidants or oxidizing forms of the molecules. And then you have the antioxidants, like vitamin C or superoxide dismutase. But I also have hydrogen gas, H2, which is characterizes the reducing or reduction form. And then, of course, hydrogen and oxygen can react together and you form water. So it's water kind of like balances this, this yin and yang or yin and yang approach of redox homeostasis. It's a perfect redox balanced molecule, so to speak. But yes, we understand we need oxygen, but we also need to have the antioxidants. So, we were saying hydrogen in this case, so we can help to maintain this redox homeostasis. And this is where hydrogen gas is different than all the other types of antioxidants. It's because hydrogen does not reduce biologically important ROS. Okay, so let's look at these charts here. The first one is C. This is with the hydroxyl radical. Now the hydroxyl radical is really bad. That's a bad ROS. Okay, you want to get rid of that. That's OH neutral hydroxyl radical, and it just does damage. It's caused lots of problems. And so we have the control, right? That's going to be 100%. And then when you administer molecular hydrogen, notice how it decreases that significantly, right? I mean, it's less than 50% now. And guess what? Vitamin C also does that. So good. In fact, vitamin C is a stronger antioxidant than hydrogen gases in this case, right? But so both of them, though, can decrease the hydroxyl radicals significantly. And then we go to the next one, the peroxynitrite. Well, peroxynitrite, this ONOO minus, this one's also really bad for you. There's really no known benefits of it. This is potentially even more damaging than the hydroxyl radical, because the hydroxyl radical, as soon as it is produced, it reacts with whatever is there. The peroxynitrite molecule is a little bit more pernicious in that it's a little bit more stable, but very powerful oxidizing molecule. And fortunately, hydrogen gas also tends to reduce the levels of peroxynitrite. And hey, so does vitamin C, so that's good. Now let's talk about superoxide. Now this molecule could be bad if it gets too high, but it's also very, very important. The superoxide molecule is very important for cell signaling, cell signal transduction, for mediating those benefits of exercise that we talked about, your immune system.
Yeah,
someone has their
hold on just a second here. New chai, okay? Sorry about that, Dr.
no problem. Okay, so superoxide is very important for us. Well, now let's look at this then. So you have the control level and you have hydrogen. What happened to the superoxide levels? Well, they're the same. So it didn't decrease it. So that's great news, because actually we want superoxide levels. And then you have like SOD, superoxide dismutase. Well, that's what SOD does actually. SOD is our body's natural antioxidant, and it regulates the concentration of superoxide in our cells. So that's fine. We do want SOD to do its job. Okay. Moving on to hydrogen peroxide, as well as nitric oxide, we can look at them simultaneously. But notice in both cases, hydrogen gas does not reduce the levels of hydrogen peroxide or nitric oxide. It doesn't scavenge it. It doesn't reduce those levels. In contrast, vitamin C, that does reduce and get rid of hydrogen peroxide, and it gets rid of nitric oxide. So that could be good in the sense that sometimes if those levels get too high, then it could be problematic. Of course, vitamin C, it's also getting rid of the hydroxyl radical and the peroxynitrite, but it's not selective, right? It doesn't discriminate between the good and the bad. Whereas hydrogen gas, as you see here, it only goes after the bad free radicals. And that way it's not going to impair the training for exercise, right? That's the important point you want to learn from this. Now, we also need to consider the inflammation. Remember that chart I showed earlier where the more you exercise, you have those benefits, but you also get more ROS and more inflammation, right? And inflammation also mediates these benefits. So this is just showing, of course, as you exercise, you're getting activation of TNF alpha, which activates NF-κB, and then TNF alpha. There's a feedback loop where activate NF-κB, and then NF-κB is going to go and activate more inflammatory mediators, and so on. It's just a cycle. But exercise does this, and there could be benefits there. But erratic and chronic exercise makes this loop just go, just basically go out of control, and it can be very problematic, and it leads to lots of problems with a lot of inflammation. And so that brings us to why people want to use anti-inflammatories all the time. Well, in fact, up to 4% of the general population use these types of anti-inflammatories, like NSAIDs, right? Non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. And up to 35% of elite athletic population uses them. Well, it makes sense, because in order to be an elite athlete, the fact is, you kind of have to exercise at that extreme level, which is not good for your health. And when you do that, you have really high levels of free radicals, the good and the bad, and really high levels of inflammation, the good and the bad. And so to try to lead these elite athletes, right, trying to help make their body not hurt so much, they're taking a bunch of these anti-inflammatories so they can continue pushing themselves like that. But it can be problematic. In fact, chronic use of anti-inflammatories may blunt exercise training benefits, just like the antioxidant story we said, right? Here's your exercising, you take those drugs, and then you're blocking, right, TNF alpha, interleukin 6, the cyclooxygenase enzyme, NF-κB, right? All of these, you're blocking these, and by so doing, you're not getting those benefits of the hypertrophy, the strength, the recovery, or various benefits like the anti-disease and anti-cancer effects, and so on. So again, and there's a place for anti-inflammatories, obviously, but there are some potential concerns and drawbacks trying to use these when you're trying to get benefits from exercise training. Okay. So we still need to mitigate excessive inflammation, just showing the same graph I showed earlier, right? And kind of like I showed with the free radicals, this is a similar thing we're showing here, that we have our pro-inflammatory mediators and our anti-inflammatory mediators, and there's going to be a homeostasis, a balance between all of these. So just taking an anti-inflammatory only Well, that's going to put you out of homeostasis or out of balance, right? So we want something that's going to balance those. So as I say here, right, we need something to mitigate, right, but not eliminate excessive inflammation and the excessive toxic loss. Well, what could that be? Well, again, molecular hydrogen. See, hydrogen ameliorates inflammatory response by regulating many signaling pathways. So here I'm showing this graphic where hydrogen is regulating levels of like HMGB1, NFKB, and a whole bunch of other transcription factors, various cytokines, and so on. And yeah, this is a very important action of molecular hydrogen, but it doesn't just eliminate these molecules. It regulates them, you know, and so it's going to actually be able to promote their production when needed, as well as decrease their excessive production when that is a problem that's going on. So now let's talk about some of the studies then. So this all right, all of this stuff we talked about sounds good in theory, but then what do the actual clinical studies show? Does this really work in the clinical settings? It seems like it might. One of the first studies was published in 2012. It was a pilot study of the effects of drinking hydrogen water by acute exercise in elite soccer players. This is one of the things they did here. So there's 100 repetitions of maximal isokinetic knee extensions. We did this in our lab, actually. It's actually a lot of fun. My students love it because trying to go to maximal failure, it's so funny because notice it just doing one leg at a time. So when you go to total failure and then you have the student like try to walk after that, it's like they're gonna fall over, and we all laugh about it. Of course, we're laughing with them. But what they did in the study, right, is 100 repetitions of maximal isokinetic knee extensions. And okay, let me explain isokinetic. So iso means same and kinetic means speed. So this machine actually keeps it the exact same speed every single time. And then your goal is just to go 100% as hard as you can, right? And so of course your first rep is going to be at the max, right? Let's say it's like 100 pounds. Let's keep it easy, right? Your first rep is like 100 pounds, right? And the same speed, and you come back and you're going to go again, and maybe it's 98. So it went down a little bit, pretty close, right? And then you get 98 again, right? And then it's 96, and then 95, right? You can imagine, right? As your muscles fatiguing, it's going down more and more and more, because the speed is always going to be the same, but you're trying to be 100%. You're trying to give it all you got in every single rep, the best that you can do. And you can imagine what that graph is going to look like, right? As you start up high, and then you start fatiguing, and your force starts to decrease, right? This is called this is the fatigue curve, so to speak, right? So that's one exercise that they did with drinking hydrogen water or not drinking hydrogen water. And this other one is they exercised at 75% of the VO2 max for 30 minutes. Okay, and let's look at the results here. When they were doing this with the exercise, the cardiorespiratory one, the VO2 max, the researchers found that the lactate levels, so that's the y-axis. People talk about lactic acid. Actually, lactic acid is not even produced in the body. It's not a problem. But lactate is a marker of fatigue. That's why we're using it here. So lactate is not a problem, but it's a marker of fatigue. And then we have the x-axis, right, the time, and we just see those lactate levels start to rise as you exercise longer. So the PW, that's placebo water, and HW, you guessed it, hydrogen water, right? And notice what happens with the hydrogen water is there's lower levels of lactate production, specifically at around the 40 and 70-minute mark or so. So that's a good sign, because that means that.
One question I have there, when you say hydrogen water, is that also alkaline water, or is it just neutral pH, or can you explain that?
Let's see. This study was done. Oh, this study, it was a little bit alkaline, because they used magnesium. They used a magnesium media, not the tablets that are out there, but they used like a magnesium stick. But so the pH is probably, I think it was around 9 point something. But the pH is not going to help with this, because of course you people who came from the Kangen water area or alkaline ionized water, that just a few drops of lemon juice just totally moves the pH, right? So there's going to be no influence from any of the alkaline pH or whatever. This is really just the effect of hydrogen water. And many other studies have shown similar results as this right here. So this is not a buffering effect at all. In fact, even if it were a buffering effect, this is not what you would see, because we were talking about lactate, which is the conjugate base of lactic acid, which is not really produced. But even if it were produced, the fact is we're talking about still the production of lactate And we're just showing that hydrogen water decreased lactate production. And how did it do that? Well, probably by influencing the mitochondria, which we're going to talk about, because if the mitochondria can't make energy fast enough, then you have to rely on anaerobic glycolysis, and that's going to produce lactate. So that's the main point here, is we're seeing that lactate levels are reduced, which correlates to a reduction in fatigue. Okay, and also with the exercise group, that isokinetic exercise group we showed earlier, they found that peak torque decreased 25% after 40 to 60 contractions in the placebo group, but not in the hydrogen-rich water group. Okay, and that's what these graphs here are showing. Just that in the placebo group, that torque, the peak torque decreased by 25% at the 40 to 60 contractions, but not in the hydrogen water group. So this shows, again, that hydrogen water helped prevent early fatigue. Okay, another study. This is actually one of the ones that I did. You can see my name was the first author on this one. We did this back in 2017, 18 or so, but we finally got it published in 2019. But this is one of the earlier studies also, and this was an acute supplementation with molecular hydrogen. And I wanted to see if it would benefit maximal aerobic capacity as well as have any effects under submaximal capacity. And what we found was that during the maximal exercise, so like the maximal amount of oxygen you could consume, or different things like that, an acute supplementation didn't have any benefit. We didn't notice any benefit at that level. It's possible that you would if you did a chronic supplementation, so after several months with using hydrogen water. But this is just you trying hydrogen water and then drinking it and then doing the exercise. But we did notice some interesting effects with the submaximal heart rate. This is what this graph is showing here. There's a heart rate at baseline is about 124 beats per minute, and then in the placebo group, the heart rate, that's HR heart rate, placebo is 125, so about the same as the placebo group. But for whatever reason, during the submaximal levels, right, with the hydrogen water group, that was down a little bit, down 120 beats per minute. And several other studies have shown a similar thing, that there seems to be this effect of hydrogen water to maybe improving the function of the mitochondria, or doing something that allows you to do the same amount of work, but it's not quite as hard for your body. And maybe perhaps some people have even experienced, for whatever reason, they just tend to have more energy. They're doing the exercise, they're just going throughout the day, and they're able to exercise better. And then another study. So we also published this. Actually, I published this one as a co-author with Dr. Ota. He's the last author, Ota, that Shigeo Ota, who, Amanda, you just barely got to see, right?
I did. Yes, I did with him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of funny because I was with Dr. Ota just a few days before in Haikou in China, and then you go to see him at the next one. So that's kind of fun.
Yes, it was awesome. We had a couple glasses of wine, and he was like, "Hydrogen's so amazing for hangovers." And I know that's one of our questions tonight too, but he was a kick in the pants. Absolutely loved him.
Yeah, he's a fun guy to visit with, and yeah, he really likes to drink. So it's luckily he has hydrogen, I guess. But in this study, yeah, we found that the drinking hydrogen water enhances endurance and relieves psychometric fatigue. This is a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study. So basically, we're just looking at, with the hydrogen group, the changes in VO2 max ratio compared to placebo, that there was a slight increase with the hydrogen group. And again, this is actually a submaximal area, and actually the effects were stronger with an older population. And then also the change of the Borg scale, right? So if you remember from Star Trek, there's the Borg. Just kidding. The Borg scale is actually this rating of perceived exertion, and this is a scale that goes from like 6 to 20, and 6 being like just laying down, and 20 being maximal exertion. And so we use this scale all the time in exercise physiology. But the drinking of hydrogen water lower people's perception of how hard the exercise feels, and so there was an improvement with the H2 group, that it decreased a little bit. So that was also a good sign, and replicated by other studies. And now finally, this is another article that I published. It's a comprehensive review article, not comprehensive, but it was a review article, but also kind of some interesting findings here. We published in the Canadian Journal of Physiology and Pharmacology back in 2019. But just kind of summarizes a lot of what we're talking about. I know it's a lot to look at, but if we just kind of talk through these a little bit, it'll make sense. So at the top we see disease or noxious exercise. See, there's a lot of similarities between disease and noxious or harmful exercise, and the reason why is because when you exercise really hard, um, or if you have a disease condition or something, then what do you get? You get a lot of ROS, reactive oxygen species, and inflammation, right? And this in turn is going to activate your things like NFKB, NFAT caspase, all of these. And then in turn, these are going to cause what? Oxidative stress, chronic inflammation, diseases, injuries, and so on, right? As well as it's going to decrease the speed of recovery, decrease athletic performance, decrease endurance, decrease health, and so on. And now we're going to jump down to the bottom right corner where we have health or regular exercise, right? And these also are mediated by what? By ROS and inflammation, right? But this time you're healthy, or you're just you're exercising regularly, and these in turn are going to activate some of these molecules, right? NRF2 pathway, PGC1 alpha, AMPK, sirtuins, NAD plus NADH ratio, right? All of these are going to cause what? A lower amount of oxidative stress, or a decreased chronic inflammation, less risk of disease, less risk of injuries, right? It can increase the speed of recovery, improve athletic performance, enhance endurance, and improve health overall, right? So now going to this bottom corner with the antioxidants, NSAIDs. Well, the idea to take these is so that you can block the NFKB and NFAT, like block all these, but it doesn't really do that. Because it doesn't we just see it just doesn't have that effect that we want, and so in turn we don't really get these benefits so much. In fact, the antioxidants and NSAIDs, if anything, they're going to block or blunt the beneficial ROS and inflammation that we see on the bottom corner from health or regular exercise. Now we come to the star of the show, hydrogen, H2. Well, first we see the H2. It has a blunting effect on the disease conditions or noxious exercise. So you're not going to have much of activation and subsequent problems there, but it's going to lead to the same activation of the same molecules that health or regular exercise does, right? You're going to H2. We've actually shown in others that H2 can actually activate the NR2 or PGC1 alpha and have effects on the AMPK signaling sirtuins and enhance the NAD plus to NADH ratio. So hydrogen and exercise, it's really good. And actually, this article that we published, one of the things I said is it appears that hydrogen acts as an exercise mimetic and an adaptogenic and a redox adaptogen. Anyway, it's a very great article. I encourage you to read it. Okay, and then this is actually from the article as well, and it's just kind of showing the same thing a little bit. And I'll just make a comment here for like, okay, the biological markers in disease by exercise, negative or positive, and by hydrogen. So they have biological markers, so like antioxidant status. If you have a disease, right, these are all going to go down, right? Vascular function, brain effects, mitochondrial function, they all go down. Exercise, well, guess what? It could also all go down if it's harmful exercise for you. But if it's positive exercise, like just regular exercise, those all go up. And hydrogen does the same thing. So hydrogen mimics the benefits of favorable exercise. And we see the same thing for the inflammatory response, oxidative stress, tissue damage, and the vascular things, that disease mimics the effects of negative or harmful exercise, and hydrogen mimics the positive effects of positive exercise, right? Regular exercise. So it's quite interesting. And the date should be 2019. I'm not sure about 2017. Okay. Not only in humans, but also in horses, this has been studied. This is kind of interesting. But thoroughbred racehorses, there are two studies that published so far. But there was a slightly lower pre-exercise DROMs, so derived oxygen metabolites, but then increased DROMs the most after intense exercise. This is just interesting because the point of this study that I'm pulling out was actually showing that the horses that drank the hydrogen water, it did not totally eliminate the increased free radicals. In fact, there was markers. There was an increased DROMs. Okay, so hydrogen actually increased the amount of free radicals initially, but the markers normalized the fastest from hydrogen water, and it prevented exercise-induced increases in 8-OHDG, which is important because 8-OHDG is actually a marker of DNA damage. So that's maybe one you want to decrease. So this just shows that hydrogen really is doing what it appears it should be, which is it's not going to go after the good free radicals, only go after the bad free radicals that can actually increase the amount of exercise-induced reactive oxygen species to an optimal level, but not excessively, and help bring it back to homeostasis faster so that you can have faster recovery and continue exercising more. So it's very, very interesting there. Okay, this is very good too. This is most important. This was published in Frontiers in Nutrition in 2023, so just this year. And this is the effect of molecular hydrogen supplementation on fatigue and aerobic capacity in healthy adults, a systematic review and meta-analysis. Now, if you've taken my courses, you'll have learned about the tiers of evidence, the hierarchy of evidence. And we'll remember at the top of the pyramid, what is the most credible form of evidence? It is, well, one of the most credible forms of evidence is systematic reviews and meta-analysis. And there are enough studies that on hydrogen for exercise capacity, this was done. And the conclusion of this study found that although hydrogen is probably not going to be so beneficial, at least acutely, for maximal aerobic consumption, it does show there is sufficient evidence to show that it's going to help delay fatigue. So it really, hydrogen water absolutely appears to be beneficial for exercise. And so this is, again, systematic reviews and meta-analysis. I mean, there's not just a review of the literature and just pull them together, but like I explained in my course, I encourage you to take it. But really, it's a whole statistical analysis and going through a whole bunch of the data and really making sure it's well controlled for. So if the meta-analysis shows that there are still benefits, by looking at these individual studies, that's a really good sign. And so this is really, really good evidence here. And then finally, this was just published today or yesterday. As I mentioned, if you saw that video that I made for Amanda, this article was just published. Okay, I was a reviewer for this article and suggested a few changes and things for them so that it could be better understood. But anyway, this title, right? Acute effect of hydrogen-rich water on physical, perceptual, and cardiac responses during aerobic and anaerobic exercises, a randomized placebo-controlled, double-blinded crossover trial. So very well controlled. And what I liked about this is it was just an acute effect of hydrogen-rich water. They just drank the hydrogen water right before they did the exercise, and they were able to see benefits in the exercise. For example, there was also changes in heart rate, there was changes in perception, there was some increases in even the anaerobic performance of their muscular activity as well, similar to the first study that we looked at. So the abstract right now is just published, but the full article will be available very soon. So I just want to point that out too, that more and more research is being done. In fact, there was this is the abstract book here from China. You can all read that. Probably not, I can't. But there was one of the presenters here we also talked about molecular hydrogen, right there. Molecular hydrogen as a performance enhancing agent, building the case. And this is Professor Ostrich from Serbia. He and I have actually collaborated on a number of articles together. But he went through a lot of the ergogenic effects of molecular hydrogen, and he's able to find that. Oh, look, and there's mine right there too, just so you know.
Cool.
The systemic therapeutic effects of perioperative molecular hydrogen administration. Now we did research on during a heart transplantation in adult pigs. Very, very, very promising study. We're going to try to do some clinical studies with that pretty soon. But anyway, yeah. Point is oh well, okay. Just a few more. Actually, I want to talk about we showed that hydrogen. Actually, this is not my study, but others have shown that hydrogen can stimulate mitochondrial function. If you have more functioning mitochondria, then maybe you can get more ATP, right? So here we're just showing like increased levels of ATP from molecular hydrogen. This is like a in vitro cell culture study. And there also seems that hydrogen can increase SIRT3 expression, and that's going to be really beneficial because that's exactly what exercise does, is it increases SIRT3. That's going to lead to things like heart protection, fatty acid oxidation, mitochondrial biogenesis, thermogenesis, and many other benefits. Oh yeah, I just put this in some of the conference that I was at. So like this first picture, oh, I got to tell you, because you'll like this, these two lovely ladies here by me. These are my hydrogen moms, I call them. Because the one next to me, this is a professor from Japan. Her name is Dr. Mommy. Okay, so that's the mom there. And then the one next to her is Professor Ma from China. So that's the hydrogen moms. That's our inside joke. Now you know about it.
Wow.
And Professor Chin, Professor Ota, who you met, Professor Soon, Professor Kyuju Lee, actually the top researcher in Korea. He's the one who's a pioneer in the alkaline ionized water back in the early 1990s. And now everything is about molecular hydrogen. Professor Ho, he's actually discovered one of the primary targets of molecular hydrogen. And then a lot of us researchers over here. You can see me up in front a little bit right there. And then this is a meeting that we had. The meeting started at 10:30 p.m. But this is an important meeting for our Medicine and Biology Society, and that was very important. Okay, last slide here. Primary benefits. Okay, hydrogen only decreases excessive or toxic ROS, only decreases excessive or toxic inflammation, may act as an exercise mimetic, slightly increases ROS or inflammation when needed, may increase mitochondrial biogenesis through PGC1 alpha signaling, may increase SIRT3 expression, may increase mitochondrial memory potential, and finally may increase ATP production. So thank you. And again, visit molecularhydrogeninstitute.org. You should follow me on social media because I post stuff on some of our studies there. And of course, join the hydrogen family and become MHI certified. And with that, that's my presentation. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. It was so much knowledge. We'll have to definitely watch that several times, but I did want to go through the questions. And, when I was going through this information here with you, I was like, when I was in my early 20s, I did figure competitive bodybuilding shows. So I took my body to the extreme. And so we're talking about healthy exercise versus unhealthy exercise. Well, when I was, 4 years into this, I got really sick. I got so sick, I kept wondering what was going on with me. I lost my female cycle. I couldn't go to the bathroom for a week and a half. Hair started falling out. I wasn't recovering. I wasn't sleeping. And so I went on a journey for 8 years, and I had become clinically obese. I mean, and when I used to be on stage in a bathing suit, and I couldn't figure out why. And now it makes sense. Oh, it's overtraining. So can you explain, healthy exercise versus overtraining exercise?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot that could be said, right? I mean, the overtraining is, of course, when you are not able to recover and just keep on pushing yourself, right? And of course, your ability to recover is also going to be dictated according to how your sleep at night, right? What other supplements or things that you're taking, the diet that you have, right? So it's possible for someone to just do a little bit of exercise, but because they're not sleeping and they're not having the right diet, that they can quickly overtrain, right? And then it's that progressive, just doing things progressively instead of all of a sudden just the next day you're going to go run a marathon. And actually, that's a good point that I just reminded myself of. Congratulations. That it's actually good to run or exercise daily to get in that habit, because our bodies respond to those free radicals and that inflammation, and that's going to lead to important adaptations. But the two forms of exercise that I call are noxious or are toxic are, number one, when you are training every single day really hard. I'm talking about 2 to 3 hours of high intensity exercise every single day for a long time. Yeah, that's kind of what it takes for the elite Olympic level in a lot of cases. That's going to be really hard on you. The other form is probably like most people, which is you don't exercise hardly ever. And then every once in a while on the weekends, or you finally have a Saturday that's free, you go play 3 hours of basketball really hard, or you go hike a hard mountain, or you just go run a marathon, you're not trained for it. Now that is really bad, because your body is so not used to this much free radicals and reactive oxygen species. Now, it's probably better than not doing anything at all, absolutely. But you are really increasing the reactive oxygen species and inflammation, and your body is not adapted to it, right? So it's like the two groups that need to take hydrogen the most are, one, the group that is really exercising every day really hard, or two, the group that doesn't exercise a whole bunch, but every once in a while really pushes them hard, right? Goes out and does a hike or a long run or something like that pretty hard, and they're just not used to it. They really should be taking hydrogen, right? The group that is really good at just exercising the right amount every single day, very consistently, hydrogen is probably going to be beneficial for them, and especially make them better over the long term. But it's not as important for them to take it as the other two groups are.
Thank you for that. That's great. Mhm. I just started working out, by the way. I haven't worked out in several years. And a week and a half ago, I decided I was going to start working out. So I worked out 5 days straight. And then I worked out
Wow.
3 days this week. And now yesterday and the day before I took a break. So yeah, I just went from nothing to a whole bunch. So, that might be extreme. So good thing for hydrogen.
Yeah, good thing for hydrogen. That's right.
Uh-huh. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to go through some questions here. So Angel's asking, how does hydrogen counteract alcohol and marijuana?
Well, with the alcohol, there is some research on that now. One of the earliest studies was actually an animal study, and they found that the hydrogen could help with the detoxification of the liver of the alcohol. And so that's one thing, because you have this enzyme, acetaldehyde dehydrogenase, and it's able to help improve that process. And then, of course, ethanol itself can have toxic effects during its metabolism because it produces free radicals and other issues. And so hydrogen can help to mitigate that. And then there was another study where there's a clinical study, and I think in this case they were doing inhalation of hydrogen. And there's actually a sex difference, I think, with the men versus the women. There's a little bit difference. I don't quite remember the details, but again, just showing that hydrogen could help with that hangover issue, and help with the detoxification process, and help attenuate those that effect, or the negative effects of alcohol ingestion. And of course, you talked to Dr. Ota, as you were doing. He's a very big fan. One time, let's see, it must have been in 2015 or so. I talked to Dr. Ota about doing a clinical study on hydrogen water for the hangover, because in Japan, like, everybody uses it. It's like in nightclubs, like it's everywhere, and like that's what you have to do. And I was like, how come that clinical study is there? And he's like, because everybody already knows that hydrogen works in for hangover. We don't need to study this. So it was quite funny. Not very scientific, but it was kind of it's a humorous thing. Anyway, that's that. But I will say there is no good research that indicates that alcohol in any amount is good for you. So I would still say don't drink it, because there are people who say, oh, but it's a little bit as good for you because of hormesis and this and that. It's not really there. Just putting that out there too. But if you are going to, all the more reason to take hydrogen.
Yes, for sure. Thanks for that. And what about marijuana? Do you know anything about
Oh
that?
yes, yeah, marijuana. Well, yeah, there hasn't been any research done on that. I mean, if we break it down to the cannabidiol and the THC, there is some data in terms of the effects of marijuana. Okay, so it also depends, like, because you could smoke it, but there's other ways to ingest it as well, right? So if you're gonna smoking, though, you're gonna, that's more damage on the lungs and the free radicals and things like that. Hydrogen is probably going to really be helpful to help ameliorate some of that damage that has been done. And we've seen this on other smoking studies in general, just because of what's that doing, the irritation to the lungs and things. But I'm thinking mechanistically in terms of the CBD and THC. I don't know. That there's not a lot of evidence that either the CBD or THC is going to be bad for you. In fact, there's obviously a lot of evidence that it could be good for you, right? In the right amounts. But especially like youth, though, should really not take any of the THC. But there could be like a slight dependency factor or different things, and just the way your neurotransmitters are working and making you want this. So I could envision a potential benefit, actually, of molecular hydrogen to maybe help attenuate some of the cravings of marijuana. And of course, anything that's used to excess, is going to cause problems, right? But as far as I'm aware, there's no research specifically on that. And it could be interesting to even some synergistic research, like with like CBD and cancer, and using hydrogen, for example.
Oh, good. How does hydrogen help with cramps if someone's experiencing, cramps and muscle fatigue?
Um, well, that one probably be more. Most cramps themselves are uh more psychosomatic, not psychosomatic in the sense like it's just in your brain, but like
No,
you have.
he corrected himself.
Oh,
I don't know what he said.
sorry about that.
Oh, um, a lot of times the cramps are done from the central nervous system, like your motor neurons themselves are a little bit off, and so. For example, one way to eliminate to help with cramps is if you just to if you were to just take like some sodium or salt, whatever, and put it into your mouth, and then like very quickly the cramp is gone. Well, how does that work? Because of course there's no way the sodium is going to like get from your mouth all the way to your stomach, your intestines, go into your blood, go right to like you can't do it that fast. It doesn't work that way, you know. But it does have effects and perceptual things in the brain, and hydrogen has acts on the brain and area and the central nervous system very quickly, and so it's possible that it could have some effects there. And then there is but then like the direct target, for example, some studies show like soaking the muscles in hydrogen water. That also can help because sometimes the cramps are caused by inflammation, for example, to the tissues, and you have imbalance in electrolyte balances, for example. So hydrogen water can help to decrease that excessive inflammation and improve the muscle or the muscle damage and the DOMS, the delayed onset muscle soreness. Then that can help with the cramps as well.
Wow, great answer. Awesome. All right. Can molecular hydrogen increase breast milk or allow women to create breast milk if they have low chances of having breast milk?
Yeah, of course, there's no clinical research or animal research that I'm aware of on that. But I suppose it might depend on the reason why there's a low production in the first place. And so if we link this back to, problems like inflammation or, suffering from oxidative stress or just a stress level, because hydrogen can also help decrease levels of cortisol and help improve the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and so it has these effects on overall hormonal stasis, then it's possible that it could have a favorable effect with that. It's certainly not going to hurt. So you could try it. You could tell yourself it's going to work and take that placebo effect too.
Yeah, I know for when I was breastfeeding, I noticed a increase in production of milk. So something happened. Maybe I was more hydrated or whatnot, but definitely did help. Okay.
Yeah.
Which exercise is beneficial? We already talked about that. How about tools inside body parts from surgery, like knees, shoulders, hips, etc., since it's foreign tool inside the body, like heavy metals. So if someone gets surgery, puts, heavy metal in there, how is hydrogen gonna help?
Well, again, if you have that can cause inflammation and your like immune system being hyperactive and then create more free radicals and things that you don't really want. So in that case, yeah, hydrogen could help to regulate and attenuate some excessive inflammation. That does bring me to just an interesting side note that's not really related to the question, but in terms of implants themselves, one of the metals that have been used for various implants for a long time, for decades, has been metallic magnesium alloys. And it's always been noted in the literature that this has been very safe for the body and effective, and almost surprising how it is able to provide all these benefits without having this inflammatory reactions or other issues compared to maybe other metals. And now that we understand the benefits of hydrogen gas, well, it turns out that this metallic magnesium, the reason why it works so well, one of the reasons is because it slowly dissolves in the blood. And when it does dissolve in the blood, it creates hydrogen gas. So maybe the hydrogen gas is actually helping to decrease that excess amount of inflammation, free radical damage, and regulating mast cells and a whole bunch of other cells that are around. And then eventually the magnesium dissolves completely and it's gone, and you're back to normal, and you had hydrogen gas being produced the entire time. So it's kind of an interesting thing that more research is looking at, like, wow, maybe we're missing something here this whole time.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, cool. How about fertility?
Yeah, so there's a couple of reasons there. With the female, again, some of the effects with just the, I guess, regulating some of the estrogen to testosterone ratios and just a hormonal balance in general, progesterone. There does seem to be some indication that could be a possibility, especially if those are off because of some sort of toxins that we're exposed to. A lot of animal studies, for example, would show that certain types of phytoestrogens or other toxins could cause a lot of dysregulation or imbalance in those hormones, whereas administration of molecular hydrogen could help bring those things back to homeostasis. So there's benefits with that. And then, of course, with the male, there are a number of studies in animal studies showing that hydrogen can improve like spermatogenesis, for example, so the sperm production of the sperm. And then there's also some other clinical studies looking at semen itself with molecular hydrogen, showing that it is able to help improve the sperm motility and decrease the free radical damage that can occur onto the sperms. And so actually a lot of the top supplements when it comes to trying to help with fertility has to deal with the antioxidants, vitamin E, for example, CoQ10, a number of other ones to help protect the sperm from oxidative stress, because they lack a lot of protection that our other cells do, for example. And so sometimes that can be helpful. Clinical research isn't super strong in that way, but that same idea would indicate that molecular hydrogen could be beneficial. So there are some studies on that, animal studies, some clinical studies, and I think more could be done because it is quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. I know with myself, I was told, many doctors told me never have kids, and now I have 2. So shortly after the hydrogen water, I had my cycle. I hadn't had 8 years. And then after 2 months, I had it. And then I had babies shortly after that. So I'm a firm believer that it's absolutely going to help in that. And I was just overstressed. And I think the hydrogen helped go in and help less stress. But I know there's studies too, but like erectile dysfunction, people are taking, the blue pill and the vasodilator. So do you know much about that?
Yeah, and that's another one too. If people do have a problem in that department, hydrogen could help, because part of the issue with the actual erectile dysfunction when it comes to a pathological is if you have like damage to your endothelial vessels, or you're not producing enough nitric oxide, or it's not regulated correctly, then that's going to be a problem. So that's where like the blue pill could be helpful. Where hydrogen gas comes in is it helps to improve the endothelial vascular function itself, just almost like exercise. And it's not an exercise pill, but kind of we talked about, it hits some of those same pathways. And so it could make sense for sure that it could help to improve and regulate that. And there are some animal studies where the administration of hydrogen-rich saline, so they injected it into the mouse or rat, prevented like diabetic induced erectile dysfunction, for example. So yeah, there are some promising studies in that area too.
Great. Well, we have a lot more questions coming in. We're not gonna have enough time to go through them all. So I'm just gonna go with one more that's interesting to me. I'm sure every one of you. You hear a lot about the telomeres, keeping your telomeres long so you age less. So does hydrogen help prolong that?
Yeah, it's possible. There are some studies that suggest that it actually can activate telomerase enzyme. We have a telomerase enzyme, and when that's active, then it can help to increase the telomere length. That has been replicated, so I'm a little bit skeptical about that itself. However, the ability to help decrease the rate of telomere shortening, that is probably true, because the telomeres are going to get shorter primarily through an excessive amount of oxidative stress and toxins and things, and hydrogen gas has been shown to help prevent that from happening. And there was a large clinical study where they did measure telomeres, and those in the hydrogen group, their telomeres did not decrease as much as the other group, for example. So I think more research could be done in that area, and the overall epigenetic effects of hydrogen and cellular signaling are very important.
Wow, great. All right, I'm just gonna have one comment here with Kelly. She says, I'm no longer having anxiety and I'm down 4 pounds. Her PTSD is much better, and she's only on day number 19. So congratulations to her, Jackie. That's awesome. Love hearing that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Lots of great stories out there. All right, team. Well, it is past 7 o'clock now, so we're going to go ahead and let Dr. Tyler go to bed. I know he's an hour later than us too. So thank you so much for your time. We'll get these messages answered, and so we'll put it into the Facebook group, so you'll have all that for later. If you can think of any other ones, make sure to send it in the Facebook group or just email us. You can email support@healthyhydration.com those. And then we'll get Dr. Tyler back and answer again, and we'll go for it again. So thank you again for your time. I know we have talked about it. We haven't decided a time yet. We're going to do it, but I'd love to have your certification course where we're starting a group of people, maybe 50 people on it, and then go through it every week together. So you're not feeling overwhelmed by yourself. I know that would help a lot of people too. So we'll stay tuned with when that's going to be coming. So, you know, you don't have to pay for the course. You do have to pay for it up front because people aren't going to do it. But once you the course, it's complimentary from being an affiliate for us. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Tyler. And
right.
we will wish
Thank
him
you.
a good rest of this evening. And we'll see you all soon. See you on Monday. Happy selling out there. Bye.
Words in Walmart. And
Can you give me